The November 2026 midterm elections are closing in fast. Across the country, local election officials are already locking in their procedures for getting voters in and out of polling places like this one. But in March of that year, President Trump issued a sweeping executive order aimed at unilaterally rewriting election rules nationwide. The order directed the federal government to build a master list of eligible voters. It then required the U.S. Postal Service to only deliver mail-in ballots to people on that specific registry. This bypasses the highly detailed, localized system states have relied on for decades. Imposing a new federal registry just months before the vote threatened to create massive logistical bottlenecks for election planners and postal workers alike. The legal backlash was immediate. A coalition of 22 states, the District of Columbia, and Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro filed a federal lawsuit to stop the order. The states argued that complying with the new federal list would force local jurisdictions to take on enormous unfunded costs, while simultaneously spreading fear among election workers about potential prosecution if they made a mistake. Beyond the practical headaches, the lawsuit asked a strict constitutional question. Does the President of the United States actually have the legal authority to rewrite election laws on his own? The Trump administration countered by trying to get the case thrown out on procedural grounds. They pointed to the Administrative Procedure Act, the law governing how federal agencies issue regulations, arguing that the state's lawsuit was completely premature. The resulting legal battle would decide whether a sitting executive can override established state authority and essentially take direct control of election administration. The catalyst for the executive order actually started here at the Capitol. The president had previously supported a broad voting overhaul bill, but when that legislation completely stalled in Congress, he turned to executive action to force the issue. To justify bypassing lawmakers, the administration publicly claimed the federal list was necessary to prevent widespread voting by non-citizens. However, state audits and independent investigations consistently show that non-citizen voting is exceedingly rare. It is already a federal felony, and carrying a penalty of deportation makes it a massive risk for any non-citizen to attempt. Furthermore, state governments already maintain rigorous, highly detailed processes for cleaning their localized voter rolls and verifying eligibility before anyone casts a ballot. The executive order did not fill a security gap. It was a direct maneuver to push past legislative gridlock using executive authority. The case landed here at the federal court in Boston before U.S. District Court Judge Indira Talwani. She quickly dismantled the administration's attempt to delay the case. Noting that the November midterms were only 5 months away, she ruled that the impending deadlines made immediate judicial review an absolute necessity. This diagram illustrates the core legal principle behind her summary judgment: the separation of powers. Under the Constitution, the legislative branch, Congress, holds the explicit power to debate and pass federal election legislation. At the same time, the Constitution grants the states the authority to administer the actual mechanics of their elections on a decentralized local level. The executive branch is tasked to enforce the laws. It is not empowered to unilaterally invent new election rules just because Congress refuses to pass them. Judge Talwani sided with the states, halting the executive order because it unconstitutionally attempted to seize power explicitly reserved for lawmakers and state governments. For the 2026 midterm cycle, the order is officially blocked. This allows state election officials to proceed with their normal logistical planning without the looming threat of a new federal mandate. This ruling arrived just one day after another federal judge halted a separate executive order that would have demanded extensive proof of citizenship documents simply to register to vote. American elections are intentionally decentralized. By keeping the administration of the ballot box spread across thousands of local jurisdictions, the system limits the ability of any single entity to gain absolute control over the voting process. By stepping in months before the vote, the federal court acted as a constitutional firewall, ensuring the executive branch could not bypass the states and Congress to rewrite the rules of the election.